of work in AI and LLMs. There's so much going on. There's so much potential. At the same time, there's so many pitfalls. And when we build these capabilities into our platform, we want to make sure that it's not demoware that falls short. We want to make sure that it's real, that our partners can use it, they can rely on it, and that they have a certain amount of flexibility when they decide what they want to use. So I'll run you through a couple of scenarios, and in the process of doing this, the investments that we've made, and we will continue to make some of the opportunities for innovation that we discovered as well. There's two areas that we're looking at this at Jigx. One is during build time. So what can we do to make it easier for people who build these solutions? And I'll show you one example this morning. It's actually a really big project in Jigx that's currently going on, and that we will see a lot more of sort of towards the end of the year. But I want to show you a little bit of the early work that we've done there that we are all using, and it's immediately saving us a tremendous amount of time in building these solutions. And then once we're done with that, I actually want to talk to you about the runtime of how we use these LLMs, because there's a number of different scenarios. We've decided on the runtime side to make an investment in OpenAI. We wanted to make it really easy for people to be able to use assistants and the full assistant API, which if you look at the code and sort of the almost disconnected asynchronous way in which those APIs work, we had to do some work on the mobile side to make sure that we can actually maintain that connectivity through a solution platform that's inherently offline safe. But the ability to integrate with assistants, the ability to utilize the vector databases and the indexing capabilities that's there, and also the fine-tuning, wanted to make sure that we bring that full extent capabilities to Jigx. So we've made some investments on our cloud side. Grant has done some great work there, and then also in some usable actions on the client side. So I want to show some of that to you this morning. I also want to talk about the different scenarios that we have where we really see this sort of evolving through 3 different phases. And without giving away too much, but straight up chat and how do you use chat? You saw Dennis doing a little bit of that. What about it if I need to provide context information into chat? That introduces a whole can of worms, because who can see that information? When I train the LLM on this, what information leaks? Even if I create vector databases and you use embeddings within LLMs, that information actually gets embedded and is available to a broad audience. So how do we think about data that is just in smaller little bits available to me that contextualizes the task that I want to do within the context of the information within the organization that I can see in a highly protected way? So we'll talk a little bit about this concept called data puddles, and we're not going to go into that. This really is a thing for later this year. It's but really using the existing infrastructure that we have to build these contextual little islands of information that we then use with the LLMs, and it makes the responses we get so effective and just so much more productive, and then of course cost effective. Delivering micro user experiences. Keep in mind, when people work on mobile phones, you've got 15 seconds to get a task done. If you can't, it's too tedious, you lose the user. So we really want to keep on maintain these 15-second cycles of productivity and do it with information that's really relevant to you. So that was the goal that we set out to achieve. So let's take a look here. A couple of things I'm going to jump into. The first thing is actually opening VS Code here before I do anything else. I have a standard VS Code project here, and this is just an empty project that I just added. You'll see a couple of things here. I have the global actions folder. I also have this thing called components, which I'll talk to you a little bit about. I'm actually going to show you quite a bit of that. I have scripts, which is already in my build, so I can have the ability to build JavaScript functions and export those, so that will be available for everybody as well. We've also made our translations much more flexible and generic. And then, of course, as I mentioned, one of the things that we worked on is making it easier and assisting people to build solutions. So I'm going to jump right in deep here on this. Of course, we want to building Jigx solutions. You can go in different levels if you want to. I'm going in at the bottom here. And one of the things we know takes quite a lot of time for people is actually writing SQL. SQL is a structured query language and the ability to join and visualize the data and what you want to do. So like I said, I'm adding a low level, and this is for the technical people. There's a lot of people on this audience. I noticed Henny Loubser from Takala is on here. That's a team with incredible Jigx resources. It's such an important team for us, especially in a market like Australia, where they've really taken the lead and they've built up such amazing skills. We got so much feedback from Amanda on that team and his team at Takala, and inspired us to do a lot of this work and make it easier. So what I want to do here is that rather than write a query, and let's say I'm going to work with Salesforce here, I actually can use this new thing called Jigx Copilot. And Jigx Copilot will pop up on the right-hand side, and it's been trained, and we keep on training this to do a whole bunch of things for us. I'm going to give you one example this morning. I'm going to say, write a select for the most common data fields in a Salesforce account entity. All right, so I'm not really going to be overly concerned with typing. So we're still working on the UI, of course, all the busy indicators and streaming and all that stuff. That's not really what we're focusing on. At this point, it really is, does the LLM understand what it is that Jigx needs? Now, we use JSON documents, for those of you familiar with Jigx. So JSON extracts, being able to use that, you can immediately see it brought back the information that's most commonly used. That, of course, is training information outside of this, looking at Salesforce solutions itself, and then becomes really easy for me just to take this and embed it in my solution. I don't have to write all of this. Of course, there's other examples as well. I can ask for write a select statement for a calendar entry using Microsoft, let's say Microsoft Graph as an example. If I get calendar calls, Microsoft Graph REST call. And at the same time, it will go back and actually fetch this data for me. And I'm going to show you one more example, because this is, of course, systems that's outside. So there's the some of the common fields, and you can also see it actually managed to flatten out more complex data structures within this, and I can immediately use this. It saves us a tremendous amount of time. Now, where I have existing data, so I'm just going to go into one of my Jigx tables here, and I'm going to take something that I think has got some data in it. I'm just opening this table, and let's say I'm just really looking for a JSON document, so that's why I'm in here. I'm going to take that JSON there. I mean, of course, it can come from anywhere, any REST call that I make, and I can just take that and say, write a select for, and just paste the raw JSON in there and give that to Jigx. And what it will do is this will actually understand the JSON document. Now, this is really nice, because when we make some of the REST calls or even some of the SQL calls that comes back, the amount of data that we get and fields can be quite big, and to write all the select statements for that can be quite tedious. And so you can give it your own data, and it will immediately write and create this for you. And this is, I would say, 99.9% correct. Grant has done such a great job with this in the back end, making sure that as I mentioned, that the responses that we get is responses you can rely on. I use ChatGPT, and too often do I ask it to write a piece of code for me and it doesn't work, and I have to go back and say it doesn't work. We did not want that experience in Jigx. We want you, when you get a response back from us, we want it to work. So it's one example of how we're going to bring this into Jigx. Of course, writing expressions, writing component layouts, all of that stuff. This is only the beginning. There's a project on top of this that our team, the tooling team is working on, which is just going to shift the paradigms of how people build these solutions, really completely outside of what we're doing right here. And I must tell you, if you see the work that Marcus, Voita, Philip, David, Yuri, Daniel, Peter, Wendy, and Samuel are doing together with, of course, there's a much bigger team in this. We'll be really, really excited about what the guys are going to do. So I'm going to move on from this just purely for time this morning. I mentioned dynamic files. I'm within management here. Dynamic files, again, it's not supposed to be a file management solution. If you want a full file management solution, please continue to use things like Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive. In this specific case, we just wanted to make it easier for people to define policies. As I mentioned, you can define complex policies as well as security rights, and then having a sort of flat store. It's not a flat store. Actually, you can have folders and folder structures inside of this, but having a store where you can upload files and retrieve files. There's actually a lot that we do We generate things like small previews for you. So actually working with this data is really highly optimized for traffic, the ability to take previews offline when you come online, working with full data, requesting full data sizes, document sizes. Keep in mind, everything that we do is about the ease of data and the optimization of data that flows between the device and the cloud. So Files will be available soon to everybody to use. Really makes it easy to capture things like invoices or documents or whatever you want to use. And then, of course, once this data, and Jigx is aware of this data, it really makes it easy for us to start including context and information of this data in our data puddles. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So I want to go from there immediately and jump into my phone. So you'll see I have an iPhone here. It's my personal iPhone. I am also my son's chief IT support person, so he should be in school, so hopefully we won't get an interruption. But what I want to show you here is logging into Jigx. Now, this is an application. It's actually one that we're working on, something similar for a partner. What this is, it's a project management, and project management is actually, in this case, is happening with a whole bunch of systems in the back end. We've got Monday.com that really manages a lot of the process around the project and the stages of the project itself, and that's where that will continue to happen. But we want to be able to bring that information and make it easy for the people that manage these projects, that's involved in these projects, to see what's going on, get the latest news, highlight certain things for them. So one of the first things I want to point out here is custom components. This screen is entirely built with custom components. And there's a reason for that. I wanted a header at the top here where I could see a bit more information. I wanted to see status overlaid on the image. I wanted to see a summary of it below, and of course, I wanted to see the image, and I wanted to see it in a list. So out of the box, you could build a simpler version of this with Jigx using custom components. I can actually decide where I want to place each element. I can decide the radiuses of the corners around it, and I can really start bringing my creative skills into this project. If I go down, you'll see at the bottom here, active projects. I can see the little avatar of the people that's involved in it. I can see the date, time, the current status, it's in progress, and current status of where the project is. And so really visualizing the information, and please remember that our whole mission at Jigx is to put little bits of information right under people's fingers. We think about this concept called micro actions. And so we want to be able to summarize and give you information that empowers you to make these decisions very, very quickly, because you've got your phone in one hand, you've got to reach this with one finger, and you've got to be productive. You've got 15 seconds to make it productive. So building these highly informative little UI elements that empowers people to be much more productive with these micro actions really is what we wanted to do. And it goes down all the way to the bottom. A much more complex example of a custom component here is where I wanted a calendar. Now we do have a calendar control, but that calendar control takes over the whole screen. I wanted a smaller version with less information that I could put on my Jig, where I can actually see what is available for my different days. I still want to be able to go in and view the details of that specific calendar entry. But for me, as somebody who gets to my home screen, I can very quickly get the latest news at the top. I get a glance of all the projects that's running out within my environment, and I can also very quickly see what's upcoming for myself for this day and for my team. So that was a really good starting point. We wanted to take it a step further. If I actually go into the project itself, we know that there's a whole bunch of things that's happening when people manage projects and systems that exist around us. So we talked about attachments. In this case, I am using the Jigx files. As I mentioned, you can use any file system. In this case, I'm using dynamic files. I have the objectives of this project here, so it's easy for me to see that. I have the supplies. I have all the current tasks that's available that people are working on. Again, you'll kind of see custom components playing out here where I can get down to the detail level of task management and assigning tasks very quickly and very easily, constantly, under your finger, under your thumb, within 15 seconds, dopamine hit, I've accomplished something. One of the other things, of course, then that's important when we do this is collaboration within the organization. So in this case, a specific customer is using Microsoft Teams. And so Teams, we have a channel where we're talking about some of these new products. And so we have this new product called the Twisty Cone. And the Twisty Cone is a product that we're busy talking about and collaborating about. And I'm in the Twisty Cone project. So when this project gets created, we associate the channel with the project, and that information now becomes part of the project definition. Now, there's something that's really important. People are using Teams, and Teams UI is familiar to them. So we wanted to take this familiarity of this experience, and we wanted to bring it over into the Jigx world. And again, using custom components all the way down to the little purple line on the left, you can see there. When I'm in project chat, when I go in there, I now get a full feed of my teams. We made the picture a little bit bigger, and that was purely a design choice on our side. And I have everything. If I go to, let's go to one of these other projects where I know, as an example, there's been some replies. My little line, it's me, I'm talking, you see the picture, I can like it. All replies are underneath inline, almost exactly the way the Teams will do it. So it brings this familiar feeling of tools that you're already using into the Jigx application, so you don't have to leave this environment, and you don't lose your familiarity with how the software already works, even though you're within the Jigx application. And again, it comes down to this. I see a UI that's familiar to me. I want to chat. I want to reply. My thumb immediately goes to the place where muscle memory takes it, because the UI in Jigx looks like the UI within the standard tools that I use. And there's just nothing else that can do this at this point at the speed that we can do it at. So custom components really, really at work here, making it fantastically easy for me. Now, what if I take this a little step further? What I have is I have all this information. I've got chat information. I've got documents that's involved here, and I want to know if any issues has been identified within this project. Now, of course, I can go read these documents. There is, I think, if I go to attachments here, there's a document. Let's just go to the Twisty Cones here, because I think Twisty Cones has got a project progress report that's in there. Now, I'm not going to read through all that stuff, so I am going to ask the Nacho AI what he thinks of this. Now, as we mentioned before, we want to be able to bring agents into the applications in a familiar way. So people are familiar with chat, they're familiar with talking to these agents. I'm going to talk about other ways that we're doing it in a few seconds, but at least we want to be able to do that. The second thing I mentioned is the information that only you can see. And so we have a number of building blocks. We already have a highly private and secure store on the device that we work with. And we have dynamic data that allows us to optimize that data. We already have OData context. So we took a lot of this that we have, and we started to work on this concept of bundles of information that only you have access to, but that we have available that we can use to immediately contextualize against the LLMs without leaking any information. It's so critical. And that's not an easy thing to do, because people do it with function calls today, and function calls are slow. Every time you have to make an API call, it's slow. In Jigx's world, we found an incredible way to work around that, meaning we can speed this up and deliver this almost at real time at a highly optimized cost. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, let's just say, who are the people that's involved in this project? And I get to demo the stuff that's bleeding edge. So Dennis's demos always works. Mine might take on a different outcome. But anyway, it's fun. So what you'll see here, and if I open this document, I think I have the Twisty Cones Word document here, and Brock Purdy is the person that issued it. Carl Shanahan is the guy who approved it, and in here is more information about some of the other people that's involved. I don't have to read that. The Go pilot will immediately come back and say, Taco Bell Research Development, Brock Purdy, Carl Shanahan, and tell me what else is going on within this. I can say, has any issues or risks been identified in this project? And again, all the information, all the text, all the chats are available for me, and I'll come back. Now, keep in mind, this is information only I can see, because if someone else logs in, They have different emails, they have different chat channels, they have different data that comes back from back in line of business systems. And this is where these data puddles become so important for us. Talk to us project's initial concerns regarding costs, particularly equipment maintenance and upkeep. However, we've made certain adjustments, and that is coming from either the chat channels or the Talk to us progress update report. But that information is contextualized and made available to the AI in a very, very short period of time. Now, keep in mind at this point, we have about 128,000 tokens that we can work with. And OpenAI's models, of course, if you use Google's models, you can work with 1 million tokens. But the more tokens you send in, it slows it down. And we have this 15-second productivity dopamine thing that's really, really important for us at Jigx. And so we try and stay with that. So I showed you how to use AI in chat, but what if I want to do more than that? What if AI can actually influence not just chat, but it knows what's important to me. I've asked it some questions now, and so what I actually expect it to do is to keep a continuous eye, and rather than me asking for it, bring some of these things under my attention. So I have 2 tabs here that I haven't pressed on: deadlines and issues. Deadlines is actually a real-time scanning of all these information sources that's in my data puddle in the back end. And what you'll see is it identifies upcoming deadlines that I have. I have 4 deadlines that the AI think is important for me. Now, might not be meetings. Meetings are different things. These are deadlines that I should know about. So on Thursday the 30th, I have a deadline here for nacho fries. It'll bring back information to me and show the people that's involved for me, as well as a description. Of course, you can decide what that UI should look like. The other thing that you are seeing here is you're seeing custom components at play again, because what I wanted here, and for this specific solution, is I want information clearly highlighted on the left, because the deadline, the date is important to me. It should be easy for me to see that. I color code the projects based so I can see all the projects at the same time, and I can see the deadline, more detailed date underneath it at the bottom. And so small pieces of information right under my thumb, immediately contextualizing it. The other thing is any issues that's been identified. So in this case, for this specific email, for this project, one thing, nacho fries, it identified an potential issue that I should know about. Large packages have arrived in the store and garage. We need to review and address them. So what we've done now is we've used contextual information within the models. We've used agents with built-in tools and services that Grant's built that allows us to do this. We're now using real-time collaboration, which is nice. It works, but sometimes we actually want to bring that data back. We want to bring it back in a structured user experience way, so you can actually see the UI, and it must work, as everybody knows. I just want to connect here to my Android phone and just show you what it looks like there. Must work for us equally across both platforms. I have it open. Oops, sorry, excuse me. There it is. All right, so there is Visor. Visor is a tool that I use. I have a Pixel Fold, Galaxy Fold here. And this is exactly the same thing on a Fold. I'm signed into here with a different account, so the information I'll see is slightly different. I have different deadlines and different issues based on the project that I'm part of here. So you can see actually much more issues here. I'm also using the white theme, Jigx apps, dark and light modes, but you can kind of see exactly the same experience I just had. On the other side, 100% consistent. User experience exactly the same all the way down to my chat. And so you get this all with custom components powered by LLMs out of the box within Jigx. So I want to show you one other thing that's a little bit more experimental that we're working on. But what if I want a more dynamic description of what's going on here and a more dynamic mechanism for interacting with data? And again, this is structured data on the back end. I want to interact with it in a collaborative way, but I want the LLM to actually be more prescriptive in what I can do. And I want it to be prescriptive in a way that user experience is involved. So I'm going to start this. This is a slightly different take on collaboration. It actually brings custom components, LLMs, declarative objects, as well as these data battles all into one part of the solution. And as I mentioned, this is slightly earlier stage. But it is possible to build this all. This will just become easier and easier and easier with Jigx, but to give you an idea what we're looking at. So I'm going to say here, I want to create a new opportunity within our CRM. In this case, it's Salesforce. So I need entity definition from Salesforce. What is the fields that's required within Salesforce? How many of these fields do I need to fill out? If there are lookup data, what are the lookup data values? And I should be able to reply to that and it should be presented to me. I want to maintain free text flow at the same time as well. And as soon as I have enough information, I want to be able to create the opportunity and do the rest later. So it really is about speeding this up. So I'm going to show you this. I have a new mobile app development opportunity. All right, so let's say we send that in. Now these LMs are a little slower. We're doing a little bit more work. It will immediately tell me, come back and say, what is this associated with? Picked a good one there, Apple. I think Apple needs mobile apps. Maybe they don't. Let's say in this case, it's going to be BMW, and I can just hit send. And immediately it'll come back. Now I'm keeping track just here of the responses. Of course, this can happen different ways. What's the total amount of the opportunity? Let's say in this case, $150,000. The LLM at the back end will look at all my emails, will look at all the context information, will retrieve as much information as I can, and you'll see something happen right at this point. For the first time, I have create opportunity right at the bottom here. So the LLM has extracted enough information. It knows what my specific Salesforce definition needs from a minimum amount of information. It also understands what information I already have available in my emails, my contacts, and my chats, like we showed you earlier on. We have all of that in the data puddles. And it allows me to then build these micro UIs that you're seeing here and present it to me in a way that I can either use free float text or I can actually type and interact with the UI. So what are the services? Let's just say process consulting is one of the options there. Process consulting. I'm just going to do that. And then let's see. It's one other one. There we go. All the way down to looking up this customer's address and asking me to confirm that the address location is there. And if it's there, I'm happy. I've now captured enough information here about this. I can just hit create opportunity. And of course, boom, opportunity is created for me in Salesforce in the backend.